What's up, boys? Let's do this. Welcome back. Today we are starting this one out a little different. So I've taken a few months off from 124s, but I think this is the build that's gonna bring me back in, and hopefully it's gonna be a pretty fun one. So I've got everything stacked in a box from months ago, and I think it is basically ready to go with everything we need for the build. So let's get into this guy. Let's do this. Oh, what a nice little note here. So you know where this build's going. It's going somewhere fun. So what else is in here? And I'm just gonna pull this up. Ooh, what a beauty. Look at this. So this was sent to me courtesy of Mr. Yep. So he reached out to WTMicro and had WTMicro ship me one of these bodies because I was whining about not getting a four-door cab only forever. So now I've got one. So I got this painted up prior, ready to go. Oh, unfortunately, I have not done the detail work on the grill. So we're gonna have to do that during the build. But what is this going on? Look at these. We've got some V2 carbon cheat code rails, and these are the XLs, so this ought to work well with that four-door. That's a little surprise. I think I'm gonna not show you. So we've got our stand, we've got tires. I don't think I'm gonna go through everything. We've got inserts, we've got our special four-door FJ sliders from Mazz himself. So that'll mate up nicely to that body. We've got more tires, because you know me, we're gonna have alternates. So let's slide this out of the way and make a little more room. Of course, we're gonna have some lighting. Boy, this is fun. We've got the rest of the WT kit right there. Ooh, it looks like I already built a brass axle here. So that feels really nice. So this looks like a brass Super 8, if I'm not mistaken, in black. So that is beautiful. So we've got a stalker transmission. We've got a little more of that surprise I'll hide in the back. We've got Rockwolf EFC. We've got a matching black brass Super 8 rear. We've got our receiver. We've got parts we've already used. Look at that. Luckily, we've got a motor, and this is Mofo's fairly new VALKYRIE. It's like a fat pancake. So we're gonna see what that's all about. I've got an alternate of the MVP here. This is the medium velocity, so this is a normal pancake from Mofo. I've not tried that one either, so we've got some options there on fitment. Of course, we've got a BEC for the servo. Got a little back cover here for this servo that allows the cord to come out the back instead of the side. So we'll see what that's about as well. And speaking of servo, look at this beauty. So we've got a limited edition blue NSDRC to go nicely with that metallic blue paint. We've got some Mazz double bend links here. So I have not used any of these. So this will be a fun one for me. We've got some Enjoy drive shafts, some hot racing long travel oil shocks, my favorite. We've got the rest of the cheat code components. And then we've got two sets of wheels in here. I don't think, oh, we've got 3 sets of wheels. I don't think I'm gonna get those out yet. So that's all you get for now. So why don't we jump into this with a little more organization. Figured we'd start off taking a quick look at this body. And this is just gorgeous as always from WTMicro. And I added a little bit of fine surface primer, and this is Tamiya's deep metallic blue or dark metallic blue. I'll have to put the paint code on the screen, but came out really nice. It gets dark quick once you start layering it on. And I did panel line the truck, but because the blue is so dark, it doesn't really pop that much. But a little bit more work here on this grill, and we'll do the lights of course as well. But man, so far that is looking fantastic. So of course we've done one similar prior, which would be this 4-door, and this as well is on the cheat code chassis. So this has the first set of these elongated sliders from Mazz. So you can see these here, they work with his chassis, and then they made up just perfectly here. So should be able to potentially just test fit this on here. Hopefully this is gonna work with that back cab. Looks like it. Just stretch the body maybe just a hair. And the grill fell out, but you know. So here's a quick kind of mock-up there. So that was a quick build, and that's looking pretty damn good. So of course we're gonna have a dark frame. We're gonna have a few differences here. We won't have the orange servo, but man, that's a quick video, guys. We are done. Well, I guess we'll keep going on the build. So the start point of any build is always the chassis. So we've got kind of the base components of this V2 cheat code laid out here. So it does have a slight slope to the skid and the chassis here, but it is not near as extreme as the V3 that's out now. But I really like this V2 for more of a kind of a scale build. So I got a hold of a couple more of these to do some more WTMicro work. And so this is the first of a few, I think. So we've got Mazz's specially designed sliders here for the cheat code. Nice shape to them, nice full body boat sliders here. And we've got the WTMicro as well. So these would work with the, I believe the Endura chassis that has a little skid angle as well, and you can see that reflected there, but really thin profile boat sliders. Then we've got the lenses, of course, and magnets that came with the WT. Cheat code comes with its own magnets, and of course I've got 1, 2, 3 mounts, and then a 4th mount that I requested without the magnets because I knew I was doing a cab only. So this will go in the rear, no need for magnets back there. So that's kind of the base pieces here for the kit. The skid on the V2 is nice because it is reversible. As you can see, it's got holes on both sides. So you can flip that transmission and motor after you've got this guy installed. So depending on which way your fitment goes, sometimes you have to do that. So that's a nice feature there. But I think with this, we're gonna move ahead and take a look at those axles in a little more detail. Let's talk axles. So it's been so long, and I could not dig out any info in the packaging tags for a front gear. So that'll be a surprise when we finish the build. I'm not sure what the overdrive percentage is in these, but these Super 8 black brass housings do not come assembled. So you buy the housing, and these are Trill heavy knuckles. I've got the LGRP black steering links, the brass steering links, black brass best servo mount ever from Mofo, and then they do come with their own black brass diff cover. Then you've got to provide bearings, and then for the inners, I've got exo.us U-joints in there. So no bearing in the outer axle position here, and that gives them this insane layover. So even better than the Super 8 CVDs. But I believe Little Guy now has their own Super 8 U-joints, so they may provide this same kind of steering, and you can maybe get those directly from LGRP, but you can see we're basically sitting on the diff cover. Can't go any further than that without modifying the drag link, but we're basically hitting the axle at the knuckle stop, so about as good as you can get on steering, and I'm not going to complain at all. So that's the front axle minus knowing what our gearing is. The rear is 16T, so that's easy enough. Got a Little Guy aluminum black link connection there, and then just bearings and their Little Guy inner shafts. And then I've got +1 brass hexes all around to give me just a hair bit of offset. And that is the rear axle. So really the only thing missing from these assemblies besides links and shocks is going to be the servo. So let's take a look at this guy. So you can see it's got that side exit for the cord. And the new Cool Kid servos are all coming out the rear, which is just fantastic for fitment between the frame rails of SCX24s. So now NSDRC is caught up, and instead of changing the servo design, they're offering a new backplate. So you can swap this on, and you can see it moves that cord right around the corner here. So I think that's the first thing we're gonna have to do is get that guy installed, and then we can get it on the front axle. Well, before we get it installed, let's take a quick look at the specs. So I've used these quite a bit, always top performers here. So you can see it's 7.4, 175 ounce inches, 8.4, 197. So again, we've got a little build mystery because I don't remember what BEC voltage I ordered. And NSDRC does not label them. So this could be 7.4, could be 8.4. I'll have to go look at my order. But one thing that is new is they're offering this 2S, 3S balance adapter. So they have always offered a balance option here to plug into your battery to power this guy. I've wired them directly as well, which is nice and convenient. But if you're running a 3S, they only have a 2S balance. So that was always an issue. I either had to make a bulky converter or just cut it and wire it in. So if you don't want to wire it in, you can now just put this little pretty compact converter here on the end and be able to plug in to your 3S balance. So that is nice because most of the time if you're bumping up the BEC to 8.4, you're going to be wanting to run a 3S. So very handy to have. Not too hard as you saw, little tricky with this grommet. So I tried it the way that they recommend, which is sliding the grommet off, putting the case back on, then sliding the grommet down and trying to get it into the case back. Well, I found that impossible, so I pulled them both off, put the grommet in the back of the case, as you saw, and then fed each of these wires one by one through the grommet, and that seemed to work. Then you could slide it down, and I tell you what, it's a tight fit. You really gotta, inch it on there and really press it down to get these two screws in. But look at that. That is gonna be nice for clearance. So I'm looking forward to building with that. So the only loss here is you lose kind of the custom blue anodized edge, and it doesn't say NSDRC on the top and bottom of this back, but you can see we've got the typical anodized, just silver raw, but not a bad compromise to get that cord in the back. And then of course we've got the nice blue matching anodized edge servo horn for this guy. So I'm gonna put this aside and move forward. Servo's mounted, got these shocks filled and ready to go with a little 30 weight. And if you haven't used these, they are just insanely smooth. Really like them. Got the soft springs on right now, but the real reason I love these is you can remove the spring without taking the cap off. So then once we get further in the build, we figure out the weight, see what the needs are. We can swap out springs and you don't have to take the cap off and re-oil these at all. So that is super nice for tuning down the road. So we'll put those aside. And the other item I've got out here assembled and ready are the links. So these are the double bend links, which is a little deceiving because you get these two massive steering links. Just kidding, these are the double bend rear lowers. So these would be, I guess, Gladiator length. And then we've got a single bend rear uppers. We've got no bend, just straight front lowers. And then we've got a single bend front upper. So kind of a mix there. They're not all double bend, but assuming they all work out how they need to since they're designed for this chassis. But anyway, speaking of chassis, that is the next step here. We've got to get a little bit of a slider put together. So I think I've got all the items I need, so I'm gonna do a little assembly and we'll come back. All right, a couple quick notes as I'm getting into this. I didn't really go over the link assemblage too much. They're similar to the other Mazz links, but you can see they've got these high offset rod ends. So if you straighten the link, you can see they're bent. So you want to have these opposite each other. So that really relieves a lot of stress once you get these guys spread out. They're already kind of bent in the right direction, so it doesn't put as much preload on that, I guess this ball joint here, but not too hard at all. The only thing to know is the four that mount to the actual skid, they're smooth all the way around, whereas the other ones have a little hex basically around the collar. Let's see if this will focus. You can see that little hex there. So that is the difference, and I think the smooth just allows, you know, no hang up there, just a nice transition. So that's the only thing really to know. And then another nice little feature here while I'm assembling this, you get this adjustable skid. So you can slide it forwards or you can slide it back. So that's super nice. Just 5mm hardware there. For these links, you have to put those on first. You can see the hardware deep in that hole there. Those are actually 12s for all four of these. So those are some of the longest ones I think you're gonna need on the build. But just make sure you've got the hardware on hand. And of course, I've got plenty, you know, from other builds. But it's nice to have something out to measure and double check links when you've got this many. So anyways, a few little building tips there, but moving right along. All right, a little more progress and not too different hanging these uppers, but you can see that, you know, they've got those opposite rod ends as well. I like to have the flange out that is going to be backing up the micro nut, and then ended up using 8mm hardware, and that flushed out basically just perfect there. But definitely use some Loctite as well. And then for the sliders, I used, I believe, the 5s, and those flushed out with the micro nuts. But you can see you've got to do all this work before you get the sliders on. So speaking of the sliders, we'll take a second here to admire the design. So you can see no matter if you've got that skid forward or backwards, these are set up for it. And then of course they're notched for any position for those upper links. So that is super nice. So a little bit more to go and we'll be there. A couple more notes as I'm getting these shocks set up here. So you can see it's sticking straight up on its own. So that's one little note on these long travel hot racing shocks. So they don't have any O-rings at this bottom ball. It's just the plastic around, I guess, an aluminum pivot joint there. And so when you tighten those down, they tend to kind of almost lock up. I mean, you can see I can still move them, but they're very stiff, I would say. So what I typically do, you know, with metal axles, put some thread lock on there, tighten them down like this, and just let them set up for a little bit, and then I'll back those out just a little bit, and they should be, you know, flopping around nice and loose. But you know, you don't want any potential binding. Next thing I'm looking at is just screw length here. So I've got out some of these spacers. These are the Injora aluminum spacers. I think these are the 2mm. So kind of looking at my shock setup here and how much thread I'm gonna have to engage with this guy, but I think I'm gonna end up with 12s here. So keep that in mind. If you're gonna use spacers, you're gonna need some long screws, most likely. But anyways, back is pretty much done here, and we're moving on to the front shortly. Not there yet. You can see no front shocks, but I decided to kind of stop right here, take a look at the geometry. So this is kind of full extension. You can see that front axle servo is leaning forward. So kind of the opposite caster that I'm looking for. So as it sits right now, there's been no length adjustment to the links. So they're just stock Gladiator front rear. And then of course the skid is mounted at the rearward position. So you can see it's back from this frame breakover edge. So I think there's a few tweaks I may want to do at this point. Also the servo is on the middle position there on that adjustable servo mount. So there's several things that we can tweak here. Leaning this back, getting it kind of full droop. It looks like there's going to be collision with the magnet mount anyways and that servo. So I think the issue or the issues have all been solved. I know they have. I think the problem was I put away my orange 4-door build a little too soon. So let's bring that back into frame here, and you can see it's sitting nice and low. it's got some really nice caster here. So I think the first big difference was at some point in setting this one up, I hit the same issues and I decided to slide this skid to the forward position. So it's at that breakover. And what that does is effectively lengthen the front lowers and it shortens the rears by pulling them forward and twisting the axles basically. So it gives you some caster right there if you don't move those uppers. And then you can also see on the front lowers, I've unthreaded them to lengthen them. So that's given me additional caster, pushing this lower, axle forward and rotating it. So that is kind of how this was achieved. Let's get the body off here and you can actually see the lean of this servo. So that's full compression. Look at that guy, all the way down, plenty clear of the magnet mount. And you can see it is moved to the front mount. So I think all the problems have been previously solved. The issue was I didn't rewatch my own video. So hey, good reason to go watch some videos that I've made. Lots of good knowledge, save you a lot of time. But unfortunately, I'm gonna have to do a little reworking of this one, pull those sliders off, make some adjustments, but should be no time for you, but I'll be back and hopefully we'll have this chassis sitting up or sitting down as nice as that one. Done and done. So look at that. Both of these guys sitting nice and low. And the bigger thing, you can see that front servo and front axle here now is just slammed. So massive caster increase there. Let's look at this at full compression. So we're still just snaking by that grill where the lights will be. So that looks like that's gonna work out just perfectly. So I ended up doing the same thing with the lower links on this, a few turns on each end. I wanna say these ended up about 54, 55 millimeters, but no adjustments to the other links. And man, looking great. Super happy with it now. So I think we're ready to fill in the midsection, get some drive lines in there, and then gotta get some wheels and tires on this thing. Quick look here at the next steps. So as I pointed out earlier, we've got a Rockwolf ESC, got a little 4-channel micro receiver for the FlySky GT5 to get together. And then I've got this NSDRC BEC, which I didn't know what it was earlier, but now they are actually labeling the BEC. So mystery no more. 8.4 volts right there, so that is awesome. Got a stock transmission, some stainless drive shafts for the Gladiator, and these are the ones with the D holes. And then for the motors, we got 2 options here, but I think it's actually going to be 1 option. So I thought this this medium velocity pancake or MVP or Medio from Mofo RC was going to be an option. But I've hit a bust before on this trying to forward mount it with the SMP, which is the same exact size, just a different motor. And I thought I had solved it with this guy, but I didn't realize that FuryTech's pancake, which is this mini Komodo, is actually a smaller diameter than this guy. So it's pretty noticeable when you stick them side by side. You can see they're quite a bit wider with this guy. So this VALKYRIE, which is maybe just a hair deeper, looks like it is the same diameter. So I think this is what we're gonna go with, and it looks like we've got some room to grow up to that magnet mount. So just judging by the one that's already built, it looks like this VALKYRIE is gonna be the way to go. I believe they've got the same exact motor mount that they come with. So nice aluminum one there. So got a little bit of assembly to do. I think I'm gonna get the motor and the transmission mounted in, no drive shafts, get that receiver ready to go, and we'll do a little motor testing. A couple quick tips on getting this VALKYRIE mounted and meshed up. So I thought I was taking crazy pills for a little bit here, but you can see got a little bit of wiggle in the mesh, nice and smooth. So I finally got this solved, and I'll tell you what I've found out. So you can see these black spokes for the motor on the back, and the problem was it's hitting the nut. So you can see right there. So that was hindering me from sliding this all the way down to actually get a mesh at all, no matter how I rotated the motor. So you've got 3 slots and you've got 4 holes on the 4 spokes, but they're all even. So there's no real variation when you rotate it. So how I solved that was slipping in some 1mm Injora spacers to push that can out just a hair, and that was enough, as you can see there. Let's get this cord up maybe. But now that spoke is just shy of hitting the nut and the thread right there. So nice and smooth, but maybe that'll save you a little time when you're mounting this guy. Not sure what the issue is, but anyways, got it solved. We're moving on. About to get some soldering done. Thought I'd share a few tips here. I think I've mentioned this before, but we'll just go over this guy. So a little 4-channel receiver off of Amazon. It's got a little button here. That's what you hold to actually bind it. So you typically want to have that button clear. So I usually come in this side and pop these guys in. So if I can do this, looking through the camera, and double back over the board to keep it pretty small footprint. You can run them this way as well if you like, but you get a longer footprint. So I'm typically, like I said, going this way, and you can see how loose these are in here. Like there's no friction fit at all. So what I do to solve that, so I can actually have it hold to solder, is I take a couple pins and just kind of flex them out. Maybe these longer ones are a little bit easier to do. So we're gonna pop it back on, and we should have a little bit tighter friction fit, a little bit better. I could still flex these out maybe a little bit more. You just get a few and it usually will be enough to hold it. But just that little bit of friction helps, you know, keep these in place where you get that first little bit of solder on there. I tell you what, it's hard to do this looking through a camera. Of course, once you bend a couple out of place, you got to finagle them in. And there it is. So now it's a nice tight friction fit right there. They're all just barely coming through. So you can drop a little dab of solder on those and be good to go. So that's going to be the next thing. Oh, no wonder it was hard. I was putting it on the wrong side. So you want to have the button free. So let's redo this. Let me stick them on the correct side here. And there we go. So that's how you do it. We are just about ready to test. Got the receiver soldered up as you saw. Got the Rockwolf programmed, adjusted, I guess, for this KV for the motor, and then also the low voltage cutoff. You can see I've got my 3S little whip here ready to go for any of these batteries. So you can see I've got a slew of batteries out here, and that is because I ended up reclocking this motor. So let's get these components out of the way. I'll bring this around, but you can see the cord coming out high now on the opposite side. But what that did was basically clear out all of this for battery usage. And you can see the battery can slip over the frame against this case here. And before, that cord was coming out here and it was taking up quite a bit of that space. So in this scenario, I should be able to run basically any of these larger of the small 3S batteries over here on this sideboard. So that's pretty nice. I don't want to be locked into just one particular, you know, style of battery. So these are all 250, 300, 350 batteries. So a good range right there. And those guys, yet they're still pretty small. So we're set up here, I think, ready to test now. And then the last little thing, as you can see, I did a little detail work here, finally, on this grill. So it's good to have that tedious paint work knocked out and out of the way. So we are ready for lenses and lights there. So I think all the body work's done now. So I'm gonna get everything plugged up. We'll come back and spin up this motor. Well, I would say we're ready to test, but I've actually already done some testing and already found some issues. Had this thing out and remeshed, and now I've actually got it in here with no mesh at all, just to test the motor. But what I found was not good. It sounded great until it didn't sound great. So let's get this guy plugged up and see if we can recreate the symptoms. But I've gone back into the programming. Of course, this is 2550 kV, there is no 2550 for the ESC. So there's a 2500, which I initially had it on, and then now it's on a 3660, I believe. So let's get this on. So remember, there's no mesh, so the transmission is out of the picture here. Let's see if I can get this a little bit more in frame before we start in. Get down here on this motor. So nice and smooth, as you would expect. What is that? So initially I thought the spacers maybe had the motor crooked and I was, you know, hitting that spur and eating into it. But occasionally I'll just get this grumble. I feel like I'm getting it less since I adjusted the KV up. There it is. And I've got the trigger fully compressed and it's not getting up to speed. It's just stuck right here. So something, there it is in reverse doing it. And then sometimes you can wiggle your finger, it'll come out of that. But you can see how I thought the mesh was off there. That just sounds horrible. So luckily, as we saw earlier, I've got a fallback motor. So it looks like we're gonna go with the MVP motor from Mofo instead of this VALKYRIE. So let me know in the comments if you've got one of these motors and have had any similar issues, but could just be a bunk motor I got. I don't know, but it's not gonna hold us back from moving forward. So it looks like I've got a little fresh mounting, fresh meshing to do with another motor, and we should be on our way here. Quick change here, and now we've got the MVP or Medio in here. So let's do a quick little fitment check here facing forward. And you know, earlier I said I had an issue with an SMP before, but look at that. Looks like we're not gonna have any clearance issues there. So something must have been different on that setup that I'm thinking about, but no problem here. So that is great news. We can leave it facing forward. If it had been an issue, it would not have been any problem to flip this guy around on that transmission skid, but same KV, this is 2550. This is 14 pole, whereas the VALKYRIE was 12 pole. So I am gonna need to go, once again, program the ESC, make that little tweak, but I'll be back and then we'll get this guy tested. Cross your fingers, we're not gonna have any unknown buzzing. We are plugged up, I'm ready to go here. That's what I like to hear. That's also what I like to hear. Nothing. Nice and smooth. Nice stop on the Mofo RC. All right, so that sounds good. Forward, reverse, and we are meshed up with the transmission. No mystery noises. Seems smooth as butter, so I am super happy with that. That is gonna keep us moving, but man, super, super nice. I should have just stayed with the MVP. That's why it's got its name, right? Saves you in a pinch. So it looks like we are moving on. Got the drive shafts in and had another issue. So here we are with another test fit here, and that's because I wanted to really take a look at that servo horn in relation to the grill, because we're gonna have to do a little bit more suspension tuning. So let me pull the body off here and I'll show you the issue. So you can see, sitting kind of down full squat, we're fine with the motor spinning. But because of that caster, when we actually get up to full extension here, we get to a point where this motor binds, and that's because we've got too extreme of an angle down here. So the solution is going to be lengthening these uppers on each side to lean this a little bit more forward, not too much, but just lowering it a little here gets rid of that issue. So it's just going to take a little adjustment to that pinion angle. No problem in the rear, but definitely something to check for, and I'm glad I did before I plugged this up and tried to spin it up under power. But you definitely don't want to have that binding up on you right there. So another quick fix here, and I'll be back after a quick adjustment. 3 turns to each side. So let's look here at full compression. I mean, it is just right there at the back of the grill. So if there's nothing poking through that servo horn, the hardware is flush, then that should work. Look at that. I mean, that is just like a piece of paper maybe right there. So we'll see how that shakes out, but let me pull this body off. That kind of propped at magnet height, but it looks like, let's get this down. Notice that bottom there. So no rotation problem here at full droop. So just a few turns, and you can see that they were all at the this outer. So I was able to get to those pretty easy. Just disconnected them, disconnected the top of the shocks, and was able to do a few turns with my good friend Alan. So something that these are handy for, because you get a million of them with hardware packs. But anyways, looks like the suspension setup is good to go here. So I think now we can get a full powered on driveline test. All right, we are ready for the official test. Got the servo hooked up here and already adjusted. Had to really back off the dual rates there to like 58, I want to say. And then you can see here this coiled red power wire from the ESC over the receiver has been depinned, and I put a little heat shrink on the metal end and just tucked it into the clear plastic. So in case I want to ditch the BEC at some point or use this somewhere else, you can just plug that back in. You've got a fully functional ESC that can have its own BEC, but we're going to use this 8.4. So let's get this on, and as soon as I plug this in, we ought to have power to the servo. Let's check that. We do, and then this should give us signal to the motor. Look at that. So this is full extension, nice and smooth there. Full compression. So no binding there at all as expected. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. We're actually gonna self-zoom. There we go. Bring us back a hair. You can hear that binding just start to occur there. So we're not at the full layover that I thought we'd be as far as steering. I had to back it off, like I say, a little bit from the actual stops. But I think I can live with that. That's about normal. You're going to start experiencing binding at some point. Look at that. Super fast. 8.4. So looks like everything is checking out there. Let's bring this back. Let's bring it back. Let's bring it in. And let's hold. Okay, we are finally at that part of the build where I like to get the body and magnets glued in, all mounted, situated right before I do the final electronics install. So we are queued up, ready for that. Easy enough, right? A couple of magnets in the front, glue those in, stack a few, glue them to the hood. There's where we hit the problem. So this being a cab only, of course, it doesn't have any bed mount spot. So it's set up for magnets to glue in here. and then 2 more to glue in on the boat sliders in recessed holes. However, these cheat code sliders, as you can see, are not set up to receive magnets down here. So that's going to be a little issue. 2 at the front is not going to be enough to hold this guy on. So it definitely needs something. These magnet, I guess, locations, they also provide basically a stop point at the rear so the body can't go any further down on those boat sliders. So that's also nice. So I think the solution, so I can get this on here a little bit better, it's leaning forward because there's no magnets in the front, but it'll sit up even on those sliders right there. So basically, to get some kind of hold back here, I'm gonna have to have magnets. So without having a recess in those boat sliders, what I'm thinking is potentially opening up these holes because they're just super tight to the magnets. So sanding those out, drilling those out, something so they'll sit around a magnet, and then actually gluing one on each boat slider that these can sit over. Then coming back from the top and I guess opening up this hole and gluing a magnet to the top of this, and you know, that'll be pretty ugly and nasty, but shoe glue can do anything. So I wish I had noticed this beforehand, but it looks like I'm gonna have to do a little drilling, sanding, modifying here after I've got this guy all painted and finished, but that's how it goes, I guess. But anyways, I'm gonna go away and do a little crafting, do a little reworking here, and hopefully get some magnets situated in some way that'll work moving forward. Well, that went swimmingly, as you saw. So no major issues, and man, this thing is looking super sick. Got the lenses and LEDs in, and that grill just turns it out. And then I've got the roof just propped on for now because I want to get a good look in here, show you what this looks like from above. So plenty of space on that passenger side for different length batteries and everything nice and compact. And you can see that little coil there at the rear. So that's the extension whip to plug in to the lights right here. So let's get this body off, and it is on here with those magnets. Uh-oh, I actually pulled the magnet off. Such a strong hold here. Well, that's no good. Well, that was embarrassing. Just goes to show anything can happen, even to the best of us. So as you can see, I've got the Dremel out. I've got the magnets re-gluing, or the magnet re-gluing on the slider. And I believe I know the issue. Let me get some of this resin dust off this beautiful paint job. So I've already done one side here, and I'll show you the remedy here. So hopefully that won't happen again. So I think the cause of it is because I've got the magnets recessed in these slots, and so there's no ability to kind of rock it side to side without putting pressure on that magnet that was glued to the skid. So you have to pull straight up, and I've got 2 magnets stacked on each side, so a really strong hold. And then I've got, of course, that little shim magnet on the front, so 2 more there. So it's a pretty tough straight pull. So I think this will allow me to kind of rock it to the side and break that magnetic contact without it actually wanting to break the magnet loose, you know, of the slider. So I'm gonna do this one more and then we'll come back and do a little test fit. But while we're under here, you can get a good look at the light routing here. So nice thin wires right down the sides to the back, ready to plug into that whip. But anyway, it's got a little more Dremel work, so it's always handy to have one of these guys on hand. We'll come back and hopefully, cross your fingers, problem solved. All right, take two. Now where were we? Oh yeah, I was gonna pull the body off, show you the insides. So see, now I can kind of rock it to the side and there's no conflict putting any stress on those magnets. You can see I got this one glued back on, and man, nice job there. I feel like I'm getting pretty good at wiring solutions and mounting solutions. Got that all nice and tidy there in waiting for battery, but I think before we put a battery in it, to show you the lights, you might as well fill in the 4 blanks here that are left, which would be, of course, my favorite, wheels and tires. Back to the box, and as I said at the beginning of the video, I've had this ready to go now for several months, so spoiler alert, no brand new Turbo Mac wheels, no 1552s, no claw hammers, because all this stuff has been on deck. It's stuff I have already. So I still think, with that said, I've got some bangers here for the build, and I'm doing it a little different. I've got all of them mounted up already because I based this on colorway, because I knew the color I was gonna paint this guy from the get-go. And I think these are gonna work well with that. So we've got a bronze, a gunmetal, and a bare aluminum, and those all look really good. So let's take a closer look at these 3 setups. Okay, for this first setup, we've got the little guy racing Vortex rims here. Really nice looking, nice open back face, probably a 0 offset, so they sit fairly tucked. And then wrapped around those, we've got Enjora's Scrambler knockoff. And we've got, for inserts, CCXRC's Pine Trees. So these are designed for RC 4-wheel drive scramblers, so they're going to work perfectly with these, since they are exactly the same, minus probably the compound. But these feel really good. They're not vented. They've got a lot of give, yet you can feel that support with the insert. So really nice setup here. So that's our first combo. Next up, we've got Little Guy Racing's Ghosts in gunmetal. So I believe this is a fairly new color, maybe the newest. I think I've got these in a satin gray as well, but those look really good. And this is the set I think I was the most excited about, with this sidewall pattern paired with this spoke pattern. I think that looks really good. And then these guys have Enjora inserts, I believe, for the 55 to 58. So maybe a little smaller diameter than this tire. So these are not vented, and these feel really good, really squishy already without a vent. So I think these are gonna do well. And of course, they come with a soft foam in them, and then they have an alternate super stiff foam as well you can use. But nice looking tires from DJ Crawler. So that's set 2. Last but not least, these may be my favorite. We've got some Mazz Designs Vaders with some Luis Champs Rowdies wrapped around those guys. And I would have the package on the table, but it's so large, it won't fit. 2 little tires and like a 1/10 scale bag here. But these are fairly new to the market. I think they have 4 different variations of tread patterns, but a great looking wide, meaty tire here. And these look just fantastic. And then of course the Vaders in the raw finish, and I've got the scale hardware on there that these come with. Nice open back face as well. Again, probably a 0 offset there, so they sit in really nicely. So these, the inserts are closer to the diameter of the tire. So I did pop a little hole here on the backside. And with these inserts, I do it on the sidewall, because your tread is basically plugged by the insert a lot of times. So a good way to get those vented, but these feel super nice And I think this raw color, I think all three colors are gonna look fantastic on that paint scheme. So set number 3, check. So why don't we get the rest of them mounted up? I'll get them on the truck. Let's walk through each of them, see what they look like. Okay, first set mounted, LGRP Vortex on the faux scramblers. And that is a great combo. Look at this stance here. I come around to the front, but that looks fantastic. One thing I forgot to mention is these LGRP wheels do have a vent in the ring. So there is a potential slow vent there without having it in the tire. But like I say, that insert does kind of block that for the most part. I'll swing it back around here, get another look at it against this body color. But I think that was a good choice. That bronze on the deep metallic blue looks fantastic. So let's take a look at some clearances here. Get this thing twisted. Look at that. Looks like we're money on the inside fender, and we should be moving that axle so far forward. Let's check the nose. Look at that, just kissing it there. Just snaking by. That's about perfect. So coming to the rear, check. No clearance checks needed back there because we're not carrying much. But anyways, I think that is a knockout for this first set here. Just a great combo, and man, just looks fantastic. So let's move on. Good Lord, talk about stance. So here we've got combo number 2. We get the DJ crawlers and the gunmetal LGRP ghosts. And I am freaking loving it. Just very, very subdued with the gunmetal gray versus that bronze. And you notice I put the bronze wheels first. Usually at the end as wild cards, they end up stealing the show. So I didn't want that to happen this time, so I decided to switch it up a little. But man, these look fantastic. Oh my gosh, especially with that sidewall patterning. And then of course, one thing I didn't mention was the little guy scale hubs here. And another thing that I found out as I started mounting these is I actually lied. So at some point, I guess I did vent one of the tires. So actually this first one I mounted up was vented, so I ended up venting all of the tires just to match. But they feel really good, really soft, a lot of squish, because like I say, these are about 60 millimeter, and I think those are about 58 inserts. So you can see there's quite a bit of sidewall, but these guys are so wide that I think there's plenty of meat there. So let's check clearances. Speaking of meat, it looks like we are good on the inner fender. Let's see if we're clearing that shock. Looks like we are just clearing it with the caster here. Look at that. So a nice lean. It's another way the caster helps you out. And then I think the nose will probably be just like the scramblers, or the faux scramblers, the framblers. Look at that, looks just perfect there. So man, just a killer combo. Loving that gray, man, or gunmetal, excuse me. But anyways, that does it for set 2. All right, starting at the rear, and what a rear it is. So we've got the final set here of Mazz design Vaders, because of course, this is a Mazz cheat code. We gotta have some Mazz wheels, and man, they look fantastic on those Louis Champs tires. What are those, rowdy? And man, they definitely look rowdy. So I don't think we're gonna have any clearance issues with these smaller tires. So usually I like to go the same size, but I was kind of hell-bent on mounting these to this truck. So these, I want to say, maybe are like 58. They're a little bit smaller than those 60s, but man, I think this may in fact be my favorite set. Just that nice, bright, bare aluminum looks fantastic. I think that always looks good on a dark color. Just awesome. So I think, as always, the third set here ends up coming out strong. I think this is going to be my favorite of the 3 combos, but also, as always, they all look fantastic, and it's definitely hard to pick a favorite for sure. But I think that's going to do it for the wheels and tires. Well, you may be wondering why I didn't weigh each combo as I went as far as mounting them up, and that's because we're not done building yet. So we are going to affect the weight of this a little bit further. That's why I haven't got the top glued on as well. So in the beginning, you remember, I said this was going somewhere fun, and it definitely is. And for that, I brought out a guest rig here. So if you haven't checked out this build, definitely give it a look. But brought this guy out for a little bit of reference / inspiration, and that would be here at the rear. So the little piece of fun that we're gonna have is getting a cage on the back of this current build. So right here, I've got the 3FLOW9 version of a cage. They offer a long, and this is the short. So pretty stubby there, which ought to work out well since most of the length of this guy is taken up by the cab. And it looks like that is gonna drop in there pretty nicely. Let me get this guy just fully in frame here. But this whole build, unbeknownst to you, I've been pondering how to get this guy mounted up. And I still am kind of on the fence about how I'm gonna do it. But we'll take a quick look at this other build here. And this one ended up being really convenient because I was able to mount the cage to the actual chassis. And I did that pretty simply and stealthily with just some black zip ties, because this guy actually had some crossbars there, so I could zip tie down to some other cross members, and then the same in the rear as well. So easy to secure there, and that worked out really well. And it's nice to have the cab kind of a separate removable piece. There we go, get that guy dropped on. But this cage that I've got here has no crossbars, so there's not going to be any opportunity for that. Let's pull it off here so you look. So this comes with some hardware here, and it's meant to kind of screw into whatever the back of whatever your vehicle is. It's also, I think, vertical, and the back of this FJ is not. It's vertical at the bottom, and then it cants in. So gonna look at how to get this guy level, how to get it attached, if it's gonna be on the frame or the body. But I think we've got a little bit of body mod coming, and then we'll have the ability to do a kind of a final weigh-in here once this guy gets mounted. Well, after a little more thinking, a little bit of trial and error, I've got this guy mounted. So place your bets. Is it mounted to the body or to the frame? So we'll see shortly. And you can see there, it is mounted to the frame. So super nice there. Figured out a great way to get this guy leveled out. So first off, I initially double-sided it to the back here, but I found it was just too wobbly, didn't really have enough support. It could just lean in at the top there. So I ended up using some zip ties here, and you can't really see them too much since everything is kind of black. So I came up to this angle member, I went through the slot on the frame, and then zip tied it on both sides. So that holds it tucked, but it was wanting to lean forward because it needs to be shimmed at the frame. So I was scratching my head for a little while, and you can see there, I've got some stock plastic hexes. So as I was scratching my head, I glanced over at just some castaways here, had some stock hexes, and the thought occurred to me, well, maybe those slots on the hexes will fit on the frame, and sure enough, they do. Let's see if this will focus. So I slotted them on the frame, slid them under, and then I just dabbed a little shoe goo on there. So they're not glued to the frame, they're glued to the actual cage. So the whole cage is removable by cutting these two zip ties if needed, but that keeps this thing super square and braced now. And even pulling back, it's locked in because of these. So it's basically just two connection points, but feels super, super solid. So just really excited how that worked out. Let me slap this back on here now. There we go. So we can take a close look here, which you can see that shimmed it, got it nice and level there with the frame, a little gap to the body there for pulling it on and off. So man, just really solid connection there. So could not be happier with how that guy worked out. So I think now with that on there, I guess I can actually glue the roof now, and we can move forward to a little testing and a few weigh-ins. Time to finally solve the mystery of the gear ratios. So like I said earlier, I have no idea what I put in this front axle, but first things first, let's take a look at these ice blue lights. And man, do those look good. I've used these once before. Don't do colored lights much, but I think this is a nice kind of subtle color. Very light blue, very icy, if you will. But I think that looks really good, especially with this deep blue. So I've got this guy queued up. Let's get everything kind of as square as we can here. And then let's see, count these guys, see if we can figure out the overdrive. Nice slow creep. That's 1. That's 2, 3, 4. That's 5. It's like about 5 1/4. So it's been a little while, but I'm gonna think maybe that's 23% overdrive. Have to look that up, but anyways, definitely does have some overdrive, nice and smooth. I think I'm hitting the, let's see if I'm hitting the stand. No, that is the, not hitting the stand, that is the max. You can kind of hear that. And that just gets reflected the faster you go. But I'm right there at kind of the max point of those U-joints. Yeah, you definitely hear it. So I can always back that off a tick or two on the steering adjustment to get rid of that, but it doesn't seem to be binding up. So I think we are ready for a little further testing. All right, after a little further tuning, we are ready to test. And just for Mr. 24, yep. I got some rocks on the table. He's always giving me little shit for the plastic boxes. Out of fun, of course. But man, look at this beauty. Here we go, a wider shot. Nice. That articulation. So you saw I did swap in some medium springs in the rear, thinking that needed a little more support potentially. See if we can kind of creep it on the side here. Take it on down. Nice and smooth. Look at that. Nice dismount. Okay, we'll come back at it. Man, I'm just loving these bronze wheels. Those look so good. There we go. Get a little grip. Ease it on down. Very nice. A little bit wider shot here. We'll creep it down. Look at those headlights, just gorgeous. Very smooth, very controlled, just loving this thing. All right, let's do a little wider shot here. Let's see if we can't get this guy nice and twisted. There we go. Looks like these pine trees are doing their job. Nice and slow and controlled, just exactly what you want. We'll take it down this little gap on the other side. Nice and easy. Man, I'm just digging this thing. Just loving the look of it, and man, so far it's driving super nice. Liking the Medio, or MVP if you will, from Mofo. Look at that, I'm just moving rocks with this torque. Just a thing of beauty. Let's see if we can get over to the opposite side here. Creep it down. Nice and slow. There we go. One last run through with these Vortex wheels. Changed up the rocks a little. Get just a crazy side hill approach. And grabbing. Just love these shocks as well. Super smooth and controlled. Very nice. Very nice. Just super, super controlled with this motor. Just loving it. I think it's time to swap on another set of tires. All right, round two. He's ready. We've got some DJ crawlers with Injora inserts. Got the yellow softs in the front and the greens in the rear. Let's see what we can do with these DJ crawler tires. And of course, we got the LGRP ghost wheels. Look at that, we are just compressing those, pushing right on through. Let's reposition here. There we go. Let's get a little rear shot here. Creep it down, we'll slide on the belly sliders. Very nice. Here we go again. Let's get a good shot of these tires compressing here. Nice. So they've got plenty of meat on that side wall, being so wide. Man, that thing is gorgeous. Just loving those rims as well. Look really good. That gunmetal. Just push on through. There we go. See if we can't get twisted. Do a crazy dismount over here. Very nice. Very controlled. Creeping on off. Get a little higher vantage point here. Come at this from the opposite side. So we're resting on a skid. And we've got both front tires in the air. Let's see if we can. You have to reapproach this one a little different line. Let's try it this way, kind of straight on. There we go. Slide it on down. Get a little overhead shot from the rear. If we can get some bite here. There we go. Beautiful, beautiful. Loving that cage. Let's creep it down the back. Excellent, excellent. All right, well, we've just got one more combo to look at, but I'm going to take one last slow look at these. Just digging this color, and I really like that wheel face against the side biter tread pattern. I think that just looks fantastic. Man, cannot beat that color either. We'll just creep it on down, and we'll go get swapped out for set number 3. Last but not least, we've got the MD Vaders on the Luis RC Rowdies, and man, those look fantastic. You can see I'm getting a little stutter from the overdrive with no slippage. Let's come around here, get a little climb. Nice. Just gorgeous. Look at that thing, just stretching, twisting. Right on down. All right. Come on back. Take a new climb here. Man, that thing looks so good. Those Rowdies making it happen. Right on, up and over. Let's see if we can crest this rock. Easy peasy. Very nice. Do a little side hill on the way out. All right, a little rock pile rearrangement, and we'll take a new line here. Kind of a sidled rear shot. Let's see if we can pull ourselves up with this long wheelbase. It looks like it. We are up, and we are coming over. So we can bring it down here. Very nice. Take a little different line here, see if we can do anything. See if we can get a nice shot of this cage from the back. See if these Rowdies will get rowdy. There they go, hooking up, slow and steady. Very nice, very nice. Just ease it on down. Boop. Nice. Well, I think that's gonna wrap tabletop testing, but man, what a success it was. I mean, 3 gorgeous sets of wheels and tires, but as I said earlier, I think the Mazz design Vaders here are gonna take the cake as my favorites. Just something about that spoke design. It's kind of modern yet retro, and they look great in the raw finish. So just super stoked on these guys, but very happy with all the sets. They all seem to do pretty well on the rocks, and that's good, since that's what this thing is built for, a little rock crawling. But anyways, I think we're done here. Well, boys, time to wrap this build up. And I can't do that without throwing a big shout out to WTMicro, who of course I'm a big fan of. You can see there, this will be my 3rd 4-door FJ to add to the fleet here. And then of course, 24 Yep. I have no idea who that is. Maybe somebody on TikTok? But anyways, however this happened, worked out well for me, because this has been a fantastic build, and I am digging having another 4-door FJ, especially a cab only. Figured I'd finish out low with all 3 of them here on the table for a little comparison. And I tell you what, I can't pick one as a favorite. So the orange one has +5 Mazz axles. And of course, this 4-door caged cab only has the +8 Super 8s from Little Guy. And then this first one I did over here in light blue actually has stock axles. So they're all quite different as far as the setup, but they've got, of course, quite a bit of similarities as well. But man, just what a fantastic experience, just great quality bodies. Cannot recommend WTMicro enough, just always fantastic products. So if you haven't picked up a WTMicro body, go ahead, find him on, I think he's got his own website now. I think it's WTMicro Shop or shop.WTMicro, something to that effect. And, you know, or just hit up 24YEP repeatedly and whine about not having one, and maybe he'll send you one as well. But anyways, with that said, I want to say thanks for coming along on this build journey. It was great getting back into it after being away for a little while, so hopefully it won't be that long between my next micro build. But with that said, I want to say thanks for coming along. Hopefully you learned something on the build. I always do. But until next time, thanks for watching.